They're over at SubScribe or over at Buy Me a Coffee. So, dead pop culture theory. There's two issues that are very tightly related because it's the rising tide raises all boats kind of things. I've been paying attention to Comicsgate lately, just by a weird. I just dropped in on it and I caught some of the drama just by coincidence. So Comicsgate, they had an issue with launching campaigns on top of each other, and it seems like Malin is in the right on that one. It's like you should separate campaigns just so both people can maximize profits. It's like you take money away from the opener who's opening too close in time to the person who's ending a campaign. It's like just separate it at least by a day. It doesn't seem like such a big deal. And the other thing is the general death of pop culture. Shows that respond to Hollywood is because Hollywood itself is dying. And I was going through some Comicsgate stuff, EVS, Anna, Malin, Nolan breakdown, and I watched some of their streams for the first time in years, and I noticed the obvious that as Hollywood has died, and it definitely has, so have the channel views, to the extent that pop culture shows have to start branching out, which is a great secondary indicator of Hollywood that the energy is gone. And it's not just me projecting well justified and deserved hate for Hollywood. It's been in decline for a while now. And to be fair, the Wu Flu had a big role to play in that. And I kind of wonder if YouTube censorship, this would be like secondary or tertiary, because YouTube was censoring the creators so harshly. In fact, after Trump got elected, they kicked off so many of them that it caused the massive increase on Odyssey, especially Rumble. Rumble is a serious competitor to where YouTube didn't take Odyssey and Rumble seriously enough in the beginning because they were tiny compared to YouTube. But then what happened was you used to be able to automatically upload your videos to other platforms from YouTube, and then YouTube stopped that. It's like, I guess they're getting a little bit a smell of smoke on the horizon. So there was a huge pop culture push around 2015 when Disney Star Wars came out with I almost said A New Hope. Whatever The Force Awakens, I think was the 2015. Totally forgettable, horrible movies. But there was a lot of energy when that movie came out. And then 2016 came out with Ghostbusters, and that kind of got the cringe ball rolling. So there was a lot of interest in Hollywood, and there was a big back and forth between SJWs and anti-SJW channels, which YouTube got rid of those as well. And this genre of Marvel, DC, action adventure movies, where you even had things like Star Trek Discovery, I think it was on CBS for a while, and then it was on YouTube for a little bit, and you had animations and stuff, and you had the Batgirl TV show, which went on for 3 years with 2 different actresses, and was, you have to see it to understand how bad it was. Otherwise, you would think I'm just being hyperbolic. There was a guy who did I forget the guy's channel name. He covered it for 3 years, and that was like his show was covering how bad Batgirl was, because it was legitimately atrocious. Even Vagrant Queen from Mags Visaggio, it had a few episodes. I don't think it went a full series because it was about like black trans lesbian. All the Mags comic books, which I've read all of them, and I'm thinking Eternity Girl was a cry for help. It was like, must have been 10 years ago. I think they were in a really dark place when they wrote that. But all their books are by the time they get to the 5th issue, they're selling 900 copies. So like, why Sci-Fi would sign them up for 8 shows of a streaming service on Vagrant Queen is absolutely insane. So what happened was, it went from Wonder Woman 1 was one of the biggest movies of all time, where Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot probably thought that they could do no wrong, to the massive Wu Flu era woke diversity abomination sequel. 2019, it happened a few years later, and how horrible was that? Well, the thing is, it was also 2.5 hours of diversity and everyone bad is blonde kind of nonsense. But the thing is, earlier than that, Comicsgate was in full swing. Richard Myers was a big name, relatively in these circles, by the people who were ready for a different type of comic book, or a crowdfunded type of comic book. And he was the perfect guy to put some energy in that direction. But also because there were so many insane comic book, in air quotes, professionals who were against people making their own comics for some reason. And he was big enough at one time to get invited on Rogan, which he ignored because he seems to be, unfortunately, actually insane, which is a shame. So YouTube I have a ton of respect for him for starting CG, though, but I don't think he's playing with the full deck. So YouTube was a fun place to be for a few years, but it really seemed to just be for a few years. It did not last long. So YouTube started kicking off channels after Trump was elected because they don't actually want YouTube. They don't want your voices heard. That's why Google bought YouTube in 2013, so they could control the narrative. They knew it was a very powerful tool, and Google's controlled by globalists, and they did not want a Trump 2020, and like they got what they wanted. They were able to, all the people who helped support him, Alex Jones to James Alsop to Dr. Duke to Red Ice to hundreds of channels. YouTube said they kicked off thousands of channels starting in 2017, but there was a ton of movies out there. Marvel was getting ready to hit their peak, which I think was in 2018, which was kind of a dumb decision if you want to continue making Marvel movies after the big final battle. Well, then you just put that final battle off for a few more years. Like, you're on top. The movies are making money. They're doing really well. Even Captain Marvel made $1 billion. You probably want to put the big movie off while you're still making money. Why would you end it so soon? I don't know. You have to ask them. So they had a huge finale, and then they kept going to the confusion of the audience, where they killed off half the characters, brought some back or something, and the audience was wondering who was in charge at Disney, because you had Iron Man was started in 2008. And then it kind of hit the end in 2018. It feels like, you really should have monetized that for another few years, really stretched that out. But they were good and bad movies, so there was still interest in Hollywood in general, where compared to modern day, holy cow, the interest is gone, because the occasional good Deadpool 3 movie, it still isn't great. It's just better than when did Blade Runner Part 2 come out? That was solid. But it's like a Deadpool movie. It was fine. It was fun. It was okay. Deadpool, Wolverine, and a bunch of cameos and stuff. Yeah, okay, but it's like that wasn't a great movie. It was just okay, and that's it. It's just like in and out of the conscious very, very quickly. You don't want to, I got to run out and get the DVD and the Blu-ray to have it forever. It's like, yeah, I saw it. It's cool. So for YouTube content channels, including Comicsgate, there's got to be outside oxygen feeding the flame. And outrage channels, and I don't mean that in a bad way, because it is fine and fun to talk about stupid movies. I mean, we used to get together IRL and talk about stupid movies all the time. That's why Mystery Science Theater was such a great concept. But I mean, not when they brought it back and just nerfed it. It's absolutely insane. But there has to be movies that follow the rules of the intermittent chicken experiment, where the chicken is taught to, like one of the world's dumber animals, taught to pluck a button for treats, and there's like a minimum treat reward where it will stop, it will give up, because there's got to be enough good movies to go to the theater, and eventually people just give up on Hollywood altogether, and you go, oh yeah, a good movie slipped through the cracks, a Blade Runner Part 2 type of thing slipped through, and it was actually kind of a fun movie. But you just like, yeah, it's not worth it. It can't all just be, or like even The Marvels, a sequel to Captain Marvel. It's like, how come women didn't go support Brie Larson in The Marvels? That wasn't a horrible movie. Yeah, it wasn't horrible. It wasn't great. It was better than the first Captain Marvel, though. And even Madam Web, which I saw just a couple weeks ago, I thought it would have appealed to women more than men. It had a female energy to it, but I don't think nobody gave it a chance, because it was a massive bomb. So movies can't just all be cultural Marxist anti-white hatred, where it's like, oh, we get the messaging. Oh, hey, look, this super smart black scientist in every friggin' movie. That's a trope to look for. As well as like the two black guys get together and play basketball and talk about slavery, and there's thank God for a super smart, we're going to have a community center, we're going to save the community center by raising money to save the ski school. And anyway, I mean, really, you'd be better off just bringing back those kind of movies, girls in bikinis skiing down mountainsides and like drinking beer, and who's that guy, that Cusack guy with Better Off Dead, those kind of vibe movies. Like, yeah, those are all politically incorrect. You can make fun of the French, which they did in Better Off Dead. And but you can't make fun of the, I don't know, the Asians who were in that. So there was you just can't have all movies just all the time be, woke propaganda. So there was a period that began wherever you want to start it, but it started to end at the end of the Marvel Universe, which was 2018 with the Avengers finale. Then Disney Star Wars ended in 2020, so they they did the Disney trilogy 2015. Keep in mind that Solo bombed, and as Vagan points out, Solo was a decent movie. It was visually, I thought it was very good. That was a movie to see in the theater. I think I saw it at home, unfortunately. But it was a fine movie. It just wasn't exactly Star Wars. But people had watched Disney Star Wars and they were not into where Kathleen Kennedy and Iger or JPEG were going with Star Wars. So that was a very expensive movie that lost a ton of money. When Rogue One actually did pretty well. Actually, Rogue One is in the top, I think, 50 movies of all time. So the audience was pissed. Star Wars started in 77. They just wanted to finish it up. It would have been better if Lucas never sold it, but he got his feelings hurt over the prequels, I guess. So that was 5 to 7 years ago, and there was a ton of channels that depended on Hollywood, and Comicsgate was tied into this as well. Comicsgate in the beginning was tilting at dragons that have turned into windmills. Comicsgate was getting oxygen from the SGW, the anti-Comicsgate crowd. Believe it or not, there were people on Twitter who dedicated. They would record EVS's live streams, and all the big channels would do live streams, and they might do a 6-hour live stream. They drink a few beers and do a live stream all night with a bunch of different hosts on it, and these people would screen record the whole thing and take notes and try to report them and try to get these channels. It was pathological. I mean, there's a lot of mental illness on the left. I mean, there's mental illness in Comicsgate as well, to be fair. But you had Mark Waid. Fix this now, Ethan. I remember. I was in Comicsgate before it was Comicsgate. Renfamous and Tim Doyle. Remember him? He's in a bikini. And I'm not saying he was on a mountain of cocaine. I'm just saying if I was in a bikini, I would have been on a mountain of cocaine. Gail Simone. Even Comic Book Hut was adding energy. It was, kind of silly, a little bit of a lolcow, but the people who monetize streams, they love a Comics Book Hut or a Gail Simone, a Mark Waid losing their friggin' mind over stuff because it's oxygen into a fire. It's you have to have that kind of stuff. And I mean, there's a bunch of boys in the industry, which is the comic book industry seems to be a lot of bundles of sticks and then the people, the SGWs on Twitter, who a lot of like I said, chemical addiction, mental illness, sociopathic behavior. It was at Mags Versaggio wasn't the only one with violent fantasies. There was another trans. It was Michelle Perez writes in real life. I remember that person. I was stalking their account back in the day. And a deeply, deeply unwell person. Anyway, so 2015-ish time period was totally different. There were several mentally unstable SJWs who wanted to actually murder people in Comicsgate. I myself personally saw deletion threats against a few people. And it sounds crazy, but the SJWs brought $1 million into Comicsgate. Mark Waid made Myers a extra $200,000 on his original campaign of Jawbreakers, which was going to hit about $200K, which, keep in mind, at the time was amazing for somebody who you've never really heard of doing comics, and he's not a professional, at least. Obviously, turns out to be a gifted writer. It was hitting $200K, and that was something to be celebrated. But because of Mark Waid and Antarctic Press and his interference, it got to $400,000. And then Ironsides, which was I think a black and white comic with the excellent Ibe Canales, did $100K. And that Ironsides actually turned out to be my favorite. John Malin did Jawbreakers, and it was beautiful. Both those two comics were really solid. And I actually just gave those away to a listener a little while ago. So Don Quixote needs a dragon. And I had them for 5 years. It's let someone else enjoy them, and Cyberfrog as well, and all the other stuff I got. And as Comicsgate matured, the SJWs lost interest, which is actually a problem for the energy needed for a movement, especially one where some of the comics are admittedly rough to start with. I won't name names, but you grow with the creators who start off with a comic, and you like the direction they're going, and you like them personally. You have to kind of like the person to support the first couple comics until they get polished, and then they do, and they really kind of grow and into being professional comic artists. But I will say credit to Myers, Malin, and Ivy Canales, because those Jawbreakers and Iron Sights were comics that right from the start were very polished. And credit to Myers Diversity in Comics channel for writing comics when it was like those were his first big professional comics, and they looked fantastic and the stories were good. So those were kind of a highlight of talent in Comicsgate. And like Doug TenNapel and that was, but his books were fantastic. Don't get me wrong. I got the hardcover and all that. But he was a professional, like Mike Miller and EVS. It's like, yeah, but they were professionals. That's why Myers was so surprising. So was Cecil with Cash Grab and Cash Grab 2. So pop culture in general has run out of steam. The shows aren't so bad that they're good. That kind of fun ended kind of in the 80s, I guess, with Mystery Science Theater. 80s and 90s was mainly showcasing Manos, The Hands of Fate, probably one of the worst movies ever made. In fact, the actor in the movie eventually took his own life. Mostly the movies now are just kind of wokish, milquetoast. It's like, blonde hair, blue eye guy's the bad guy again, and it's super smart. Even, what was that movie? They go to the center of the earth to turn on the, I don't know, convection zones or, geostasy and geophysics or whatnot. Like, hey, super smart black scientist. Oh, hey, should team up with Shuri, right? Anyway, not much to say about something like Predator Badlands, which I saw the other night. And maybe I'll go back and watch some of the other Predator movies. It's a different take on the story, but it's not worth paying for when you look at like, well, what is your local theater? $16, $20, even the matinees, $12 or something. Nothing really out in the theaters is worth it. And you got the theaters, you're already paying for the real estate. The thing to do would be to fill the theaters, and the easy way to do that is simply lower the ticket price. Make the matinee like $5, and that thing would be packed. And then the nightly tickets, like primetime, you could have normal price, but like off prime times, just cut those tickets in half. Like the 8 o'clock showing, okay, fair enough, you can make that full price. But then you go, okay, but like the 5 o'clock showing, make it $8, and you will have every theater filled. And that, like, logically, that would make sense in a lot of different markets. The problem is they get the air quotes here wrong audience, the troublemaker types, and which is kind of its own story. It's the why we can't have public transportation or low price movies or high trust society, because you'll get stabbed. It's why you don't want oh, hey, we're gonna have the train line come to our town, and you see people a little bit older, more experienced, are very quick to say, no, you don't want that. Well, why is that, Grandpa? You don't want low-cost public transportation coming into your town, because you get a bad element who can, ride the bus or the train for free, and or for very low cost, and essentially commit crimes in your little town and go back to the city, and or stab you on the public transportation. Why can't we be like Japan or South Korea? You're kidding, right? You're gonna make me sad. Anyway, people lose all interest in Hollywood when everything is bad. It's not the Batwoman TV show bad, which went for 3 years, which was fantastically bad, which was extreme enough for people to laugh at. I mean, you can go find it online. Go watch like a couple of two of the episodes, blow your tits off. The one with the white girl, I forget her name, and then the other one with the black girl with the afro. It's instead you're getting stuff like Madam Web or the Marvels or Tron Ares or Black Adam or Black Widow or Shazam 2 or Suicide Squad Part 2. Birds of Prey probably was so bad it might be verging on good, maybe. Or Fantastic Four with Pascal. The latest movie. Like movies, I didn't even remember Fantastic Four. It's like I just saw another little thing for it, because the movies are in and out of the conscious so quick. They're just nothing. They're just eating a rice cake or something. There's not enough interest for people to make like more than one video. When Star Wars 2015 came out, that was a huge amount of interest, because it was unusually woke, bad, shocking. And then Ghostbusters 2016 was the same way. But then by the time the middle Star Wars came out, people realized, oh, this is just the direction Hollywood's going in. Like, you don't want them to come back with another Pirates of the Caribbean with Johnny Depp, which you totally could do. It's like a pirate can be any age. It doesn't matter. Because it'll be stupid, you know. It's like you're not gonna like the if you remember Pirates 2 where they're going to the Pacific Island or what was it, Caribbean Island something, and they're cannibals and these brown people running around eating people. There was a speaking of Mystery Science Theater, holy cow, there was a Japanese did like a Godzilla movie, and this was like in the 60s or 70s or something. And so they're filming, pretending to be on some island somewhere with little, you know, Pacific Island. There's little brown children, and it's just Japanese kids in brown face. It's, like, they don't give a shit. It was fantastic, fantastic movies. Mr. Science Theater, the original stuff, was a lot of fun. So people just kind of dip out of Hollywood. The pop culture environment is changing radically, and that mainstream stuff is dying, and it deserves to die. Movies that break even, like Superman, they go, oh, thank God it might break even in, you know, Blu-ray sales or something, are a success these days. And most successful movies, somebody went through the top movies, and it was 75% of them were prequels, sequels, derivatives from much earlier properties, mostly from the 70s and 80s, like Aliens. Star Wars is 77. I think Star Trek might have been 78. Superman and Aliens were around 79. Amityville Horror. And then you had you know, Indiana Raiders of the Lost Ark might have been 81. The rest of the Star Wars were in the 80s. Indiana Jones, the rest of it was in the 80s. Poltergeist, E.T., Goonies, Gremlins, a ton of these. Jaws, I think, started in the 70s. You know, Peter Benchley's. Though I thought The Beast was a really good book, as well as the Girl from the Sea of Cortez, which was I guess a takeoff on I want to say Steinbeck's. I think I just discovered he had a book the same name. The thing is, there was a ton. Those are, I'm trying to say, those are like 50 years old, some of them, 40, 50 years old. Predator was 1987. What a fantastic movie. And like even, speaking of like derivative movies, Total Recall, which like I think it was the movie, right? The Philip K. Dick might have wrote it, and then I think like Alan Dean Foster rewrote the movie treatment, and then Piers Anthony rewrote it again. It was like it had like 3 different authors from the original. We Can Remember It For You Wholesale, because I remember that I had read the short story, which it was a short story that somebody turned into a book that then somebody turned into Total Recall, which Schwarzenegger and I forget the woman who's at the 2 women are co-stars in it. What a great movie! It's like it wasn't a great movie, but compared to modern day movies, that was a like, you know, it was like Macbeth or something. But the white pill is that in a few years we're going to be using AI, and you're going to either use real live actors and make movies in your living room with the entire backgrounds, no green screens needed. AI and CGI are just going to fill those in. Like, you can use real actors. I think you got to kind of use real actors, humans. But like one living room can be any setting anywhere on the world, from a spaceship to a jungle. And you could just use, you know, you'd be filming locally and no one would ever know it. You'd making movies for like, you know, a few $1,000s. It's like essentially just your time and some good computers. And you can make a movie without diversity or without a Bechdel test. And for once, the antagonists will look like they're supposed to. Oh, hey, terrorists, they're going to commit large-scale Malum and Say events. Yeah, okay. I mean, there's the one group that actually leads the way for the past 1,400 years. Why are they blonde hair or blue eyed? Oh, these are like Germans. They're like Germans who are taking over a building, and Bruce Willis has to stop them. Oh, okay. And then like to John Wick, it's blonde hair, blue eyed Russian gangsters or something. Yeah, that's right. And then so the other movie is South American diamond smugglers, and they're blonde hair, blue eyed as well. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, you know, that's the statistical improbability is coming up every single time. It's a bit odd, you know, a bit odd. Yeah, well, that's just so, you know, terrorism's not really a German thing. You know, it's actually another group. Tan, much more tan, a little bit more, a lot more sun exposure. Not European at all, really, or Russian or South African, what are those, Dutch or something? The Boer. Weird. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. Thanks to everyone over at Buy Me a Coffee and SubScribe Star for our little project, and I will see you guys all next episode.